Good morning. This is Pete McGilvery. I work in the Office of Environmental Management here in Central Office, FDOT. I serve as the State Environmental Quality and Performance Administrator. I'm joined today by Mike Konikoff. He is our lead developer and also mans the help desk here at OEM for SWEPT, statewide environmental project tracker related issues, as well as environmental screening tool and ETDM related issues as well. Today's presentation will go through quite a few things. We're going to be focused on providing a SWEPT overview. We'll talk about some of the key features and how you gain access to the system. Mike will come on and show some general navigation, user setups, search functionality, items you see listed here on the agenda. We'll also spend some time going through the environmental document review process and how it connects to other systems like ERC, and how we route things through the approval process and how it moves from the districts up to central office and through the OEM staff. We'll also go through some detailed demonstrations for how to create a type 1 checklist, how to attach documents, how to approve it. We'll focus on reevaluations and how those are generated as an electronic form within SWEPT themselves. We'll talk about the environmental document submittal forms and how things route through the districts and up to OEM. We'll go through some discussion on completing and approving a Type 2 categorical exclusion form. And we'll also go into some details on environmental certifications. The training is going to be fairly long, so we're going to break it up into small, manageable chunks as we transition from each of those various topics. And so this is going to be part 1. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and get the agenda and PowerPoint going for our discussion. Again, this is going to be the SWEPT overview training, and we'll provide that overview. We'll talk about a document process, and we'll go through all these various pieces of the application. But in order to get going, we kind of want to give you a background on the application itself. The application is just technically called SWEPT. What it stands for is the Statewide Environmental Project Tracker. It was developed in support of the department's execution of the NEPA assignment memorandum of understanding between us and FHWA. With the execution of that memorandum of understanding, there's lots of requirements and responsibilities that transition either from FHWA to the department, or their requirements that we must live up to in order to report and monitor our progress here with the department. Initially, we did a preparedness evaluation to see what was going on in the districts, how we were organized, how we managed our documents, how they're stored, how they're approved, how you would access them, what type of data management and retention requirements were being met down in the districts. And like anything else, we do a good job. Just we do a really good job differently in all the various districts. So it became really important to look at what were some of the best practices out there in the districts, because everybody's doing it. Everything we're talking about today, there's nothing new, interesting, or exciting about it. It's just going to be a transition from lots of different ways of doing it in the districts to one consistent way of doing it statewide. Now, by doing that, it allows us to be very responsive to the requirements in the MOU, which is we've got to track things and monitor things and report on things and provide statuses on performance measures. We've got to know what got approved and how long things are taking, all of these various things. So it became really important to develop the statewide application to provide that consistent interface. And some of the things that are integrated within SWEPT are project schedules. Out in the districts, you guys are working with your PD&E team, with your SWAT, those statewide acceleration transformation teams, identifying projects, thinking about the realities of what projects should move forward on what schedule, how much design you can do, all of those various things. And you begin to develop realistic schedules working with that team, providing that information to your schedulers locally within the district. Those district schedulers enter that stuff in Primavera, and then ultimately they submit those uploaded schedules into the project schedule and management system. We call it PSM. Well, for PSM, it became important that we all use the same codes to mean the same thing. So we developed a set of 700 series PSM codes to facilitate a consistent set of milestones per varying classes of action to know how we were going to manage a schedule. Those schedules then every day are looking at the data dumps out of PSM and pulling those environmental document schedules into SWEPT so that you have a visual representation as well of what's going on with all these various projects along those milestones. Another piece that was recently released into production was the integration of the PD&E scope of service module. That sets the foundation for the work products and the coordination and the effort that's intended to occur on development of that individual PD&E study or NEPA study. By using the SWEPT interface, it allows us to make sure that everyone's using the latest language, that we're using consistent language, that the activities and functions that have been reviewed by legal or procurement are all within the existing templated interface. So there's features within SWEPT that allow the districts and their consultants to develop these scopes of services. The other thing that SWEPT does is it takes what used to be a paper manual process, and really SWEPT is a paperless initiative for the department. It allows us to electronically manage and assign and review and approve various environmental documents. We can electronically route things through all the various stakeholders that need to be part of the review and approval process. We can electronically manage all the files. Because we're using one interface, this SWEPT system, it allows us to put in some consistency for file storage, naming conventions, how the project file is set up, how ultimately you could work to build an administrative record. And because everything is in this one database, it allows us to also connect to other department resources and provide connections. For instance, the documents as they're approved or as they're stored within SWEPT are also copied into the department's electronic document management system, which serves as the long-term archive and data retention piece for the department. Another function of SWEPT is kind of tied to those MOUs, requirements that were spelled out, tied to performing self-assessments to look at how our quality assurance and quality control process is working on our documents, how it flows through the systems electronically, how the project file is being maintained and making sure that requirements are being met. It also provides a one-stop shop for FHWA. They have a requirement for every year for the first 4 years. They will come in and audit our system and our process and our project files. They're not going to audit the decisions we've made. What they are going to audit is to make sure that we're compliant with the MOU, that our procedures are in place, and that we're following our procedures. And the way that they would do that is a good portion of that work includes active review of the project files to find evidence that we're meeting the requirements as laid out in our own procedures and those established in the MOU as well. Part of the requirements on the MOU also relate to performance, and we've got to be able to report out on how we're demonstrating compliance with our own procedures, how long things are taking while we have NEPA assignment versus when FHWA was in charge, and there's several other performance measures that we're able to track within the system and produce reports without additional work having to be accomplished or having to go back to the districts to fill out more information. So that's just some of the key features of SWEPT and why we had to build that particular system. But who are some of the folks that are involved in the SWEPT? Who is that user community? And when you think about it, it's really for the environmental offices and then other folks who may have a role either supporting or managing the processes coming out of those offices. The district environmental managers and the project development managers, those kind of serve as the administrators in the district. They're the ones that are certifying that the documents are ready to be reviewed by central office and approved by central office. So they're looking at the files and making sure they're complete. They're verifying that the quality assurance and quality control has been completed. District environmental managers, some of the approvals have been pushed down to the district. Type 1s, for instance, have always been approved by the district, whether FHWA was managing the process or whether the department is managing the process. That remains the same. The district environmental manager is still approving the Type 1 categorical exclusions. They're just doing it in an electronic way versus a paper product way as they did in the past. You also have the district project managers and then team members. Team members can be what we would consider data entry people, folks who are either on staff or from the consultant community that have been assigned a role that allow them to perhaps draft forms or upload documents to support the process. The project managers are the ones individually responsible for the project. Now, a project manager could be from PD&E, could be from design. It really doesn't matter. It's who's the individual who's responsible for the project. They get assigned that role. And that's kind of a key piece of information that I wanted everybody to kind of understand. This is an internet-based application. Whether you're inside the department or outside the department, it really comes down to whether or not you have a particular role to interact with the application, and it's based on that role and your jurisdiction that allows you to do things. Now, there is one caveat to that. If there is an approval that needs to happen within the department, say a project manager is signing a Type 2 categorical exclusion as they're pushing it up to their district environmental manager, or the district environmental manager is signing the Type 1 or signing the Type 2 or the reevaluation, those authorities can only exist and reside with a DOT employee. Those cannot be with a consultant. Those need to be a DOT staff. Now, there are functions in place that will demonstrate that allow you to delegate authority to another DOT person. So say if you're going to be on vacation or you're going to be out for an extended period of time, there's a delegation activity that allows you to assign it to somebody, your authority for a specified amount of time. Then if you look at the other rest of the community listed on here, you've got the district liaisons. Those are called project delivery coordinators up here in central office, the Office of Environmental Management. There are specific individuals that have been assigned to be the project delivery coordinators and assigned directly with the districts as the main conduit between our office and the districts. They're working within the system. They're reviewing the applications and the submittals that come through up to OEM. They're coordinating monthly on all the various projects. They're considered the point person here in the office between us and the districts. Then you've got other folks, the project reviewers, that can consist of subject matter experts, and it could also consist of the managers here. If we think about like a Javier and a Margie, those folks that are part of the environmental process administrators or environmental program administrators. Then there's the staff here that has to work with the quality assurance and quality control. Eric Whitehead is our quality assurance and quality control coordinator. He works in my section, and he's also assigned the lead to be coordinating the self-assessments that we perform annually, as well as assigned to the FHWA Audit Support Coordinator representative from the department. Then, of course, we've got the attorneys, the Office of General Counsel. They are plugged in, and whether that's that they need to perform an official legal sufficiency on an EIS or a document containing a 4F determination. That's more of a formal role where they get plugged in. But depending on the nature of the project, the issues, the complexities, the concerns, the reviewing attorneys can also be added as part of the project review team so that they are integrated and upfront and coordinating on all the various project documents that are being produced in meetings as they go through the system. So how do you request access within SWEPT? It really comes down to the district environmental leadership sending an email to our help group. So that leadership can be the environmental administrators, the district environmental managers, or the district project development managers. It's going to be those three positions in the district that will be providing access and authority to individuals that are accessing SWEPT. They'll identify the jurisdiction and the level of access that they would have. Whether that's a DOT employee or a consultant. The consultants would also need to funnel up through their DOT project manager and ultimately through the leadership. What we need on each account are the names, their email address, and the intended roles that they would use within the system. And the roles are kind of well defined for the folks that are doing the approvals. For the folks that are doing the day-to-day management of the records, it really breaks down to two folks. A project data entry person, and again, this could be in-house people, this could be consultants, but they're folks that are going to be responsible for uploading information, perhaps drafting forms, making sure the project file is complete, but they can't approve anything. Whatever they do ultimately flows from them, either up through a project manager that's assigned or potentially up through an environmental manager at the district level. Then you've got a project manager. A project manager has some additional rights for a Type 2 or reevaluation. They're the individuals that are either signing or reviewing the forms as they pass through on to the Office of Environmental Management for signature. The electronic approval process has to flow up through the project manager, up through the district environmental manager, project development manager, and then ultimately to OEM, where that project delivery coordinator will verify things and then continue to move it on through the approval process, through the legal, if needed, and or environmental process administrators until ultimately a recommendation is made to the Director of Office of Environmental Management for approval. We've talked a little bit about the District Environmental Manager. They do have some approvals. Obviously, the Type 1 categorical exclusion is approved down to district level. Again, no change. That's just an electronic process now versus a paper process before. They also, depending on the nature and complexity of a reevaluation, the reevaluation can be completed, and after coordinating with the project development, project delivery coordinators up here in OEM, there can be some discussion about the nature of the reevaluation. Reevaluations can really kind of head off in one of two directions. Either, through that coordination, you recognize that there's low risk on the reevaluation, maybe timing-wise, it's very close to when the evaluation was completed, or just the nature of the action being reevaluated. You can have a conversation with your PDC and recognize that, oh, there's low risk, we're just going to sign this down here in the district, and that's called a consultative process. Within that process, the district environmental manager approves the reevaluation. They just also document when they spoke to OEM and on what date. If the reevaluation is a little more complicated and there's a desire from the OEM, PDC, and the management up here to make sure that the reevaluation flows up, the district environmental manager still approves it, but it then continues on through the process up to OEM for further review. The district environmental manager is also the one that would be able to create the environmental certifications. And they're also part of the process with the district project development managers, where you guys are the administrators in the district that are reviewing all the projects, all the attachments. You're verifying that the quality assurance and quality control has occurred on the documents. You're verifying that the documents are ready either to be put into the ERC for initial review, or that the comments have been all addressed and the document's in great shape and they're ready to move on through the OEM approval process. SWEPT itself is broken down into basically 5 components. There's separate trainings on the project dashboard, the quality and performance management piece, that's really for ourselves working on the self-assessments and audit support. We won't go into that. The team management piece is how we assign resources up here to work on various documents so that it routes to the right people at the right time. But today's focus is really going to look at the elements and things found in the project input and setup, as well as in the project documents. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Mike Konikoff, and Mike's going to give you an overall demonstration of the site itself and how it functions. So let me turn it over to Mike. Mike, I'm making you presenter. If you could press play, and then we should be ready to go.
All right, thank you, Pete. So what we're looking at here is the login screen for our testing and training server, which we're going to use for demonstration today. While much of the project information does come from the work program database, and so it's real project information, everything we enter in here today is just for training and demonstration purposes. We're not creating any real records and stuff. So there's a username and password. Pete talked about how you can obtain one of those. If you forget your username and password, there is a Forgot Your Password link on the login screen where you can type in either your username or your email address and reset your password. You can also find some contact information for the help desk if you have any issues logging in. And I'm going to go ahead and log in with one of our test accounts. So when you log into SWEPT, you get to what we call the landing page, and it's organized with a main navigation menu along the left-hand side, modules going across the top, and each of those modules, depending on your access, you will have one or more of those, and they take you to a landing page for that particular module. Those correspond to the overview links for each of those modules in the main navigation menu. Beneath the module icons in the center of the screen, there's an area for alerts. I happen to be logged in as a district environmental manager, and it's telling me I have a type 1 CE that needs its environmental certification done. So as those type of approvals or action items occur and are needed, you'll see them in your alerts list. And then you have a list of projects. My projects would be those projects that you are assigned to, for example, as a project manager or as a a data entry individual. And then my region lists projects that are within your district. Going back up to the top of the screen, we do have a search function on the site where you can search for projects and documents either by name or FM number or document type. There's a set of icons next to the search that are disabled on some pages depending on which page you're on. So if you're on a report that has a PDF version, you'll be able to click the PDF button. There's a zip icon. Some reports have attachments. The zip will bundle all those together into a zip file for download. Some pages have an Excel export version, and then some have a Word version. In particular, the Scope of Services tool allows you to export to Word. Above the search and export icons, there's a couple more icons. One is a notification icon. This will have a red number for new alerts, and you can click it to see your full list of alerts. And then there's the profile icon in the upper right. This is where you can change your password, update your contact information. If you are a district person with approval authority, like an environmental manager or project development manager or project manager, you can delegate your authority to someone else within the district, and I'll demonstrate that shortly. And then there's also a logout link to log out of the site. One thing I want to show you about the site is, while we're using it in Internet Explorer today on a desktop, it has been designed as a responsive application. So what that means is you can use the application on any of the major modern browsers, so Chrome, Firefox, Opera, and Safari. You can use it on a laptop, on a mobile device. As the screen size changes, you'll see the layout of the screen changes. And so here it's showing you on a kind of a mobile size screen. You can see the module icons layout. The tables allow you to scroll and page. If you get into tablet sizes, you can see the layout of the site adjusting to fit on those different size screens. So just because we're demonstrating today on Internet Explorer and a desktop, just be aware that you can use this application from a variety of devices. And then on the upper left, there is a menu icon. This will toggle the left-hand menu if you do need more room on the screen. It'll automatically toggle as your screen size changes if you have a smaller screen, but you can always access the navigation menu through the menu icon. And then above that, there is a home link. The home link will take you to this landing page, and as we navigate through the site, you'll see that next to the home link, there'll be a breadcrumb trail showing you where you are in the site navigation, allowing you to navigate back up through the navigation to the pages that you previously visited. And then the OEM and SWEP logo will also bring you back to this home page, and these appear on all the pages on SWEP. So that's the basic layout of the home page. What I'm going to show next is the help menu, which is at the bottom of the main navigation. The help overview talks about everything that we're discussing in this segment, so the basic navigation and what all the parts and pieces of the SWEP site are, so you can always visit that page to read about this information. There's links to email the help desk or call if you have questions or need assistance. Also in the help menu, we have a series of quick guides. We are adding more of these all the time. The first one Pete went over was requesting swept access. We also have some that we're going to go into detail today on the environmental document review process, the environmental document submittal, which is that routing form for routing environmental documents up to OEM for approval, and then uploading project documents to the project file. Each of those has a PDF that's suitable for printing and meant to be a one-page reference on those processes in SWEPT. There's also a training videos section that give live demonstrations recorded of how to use various pieces of the SWEPT site and perform certain functions, and we are continually adding to those as well. And then finally, a SWEPT contacts page that gives you support teams, contact information, as well as for each district, the project delivery coordinator contacts, both primary and secondary, up here in the Office of Environmental Management, the engineering review and analysis unit folks for each district, as well as the administrator support, the OGC contact, and then the district leadership contacts. I will demonstrate now searching on the site. So as I mentioned, you can search by project name or FM number. So I will search, for example, on 217-613. So you can type in all or part of the FM number with or without dashes. And what you will see is a list of search results for that number. The search results are broken out into projects. So those will take you to individual project pages, documents. Those are going to be documents that are in those project files. And then we also have a section for people. If you're searching for a contact person, that is where you would see those results, and I'll give you the contact information for those people. You can toggle on and off the different search categories. You can filter your results by district and also change the number of results shown on each page. And the last thing I want to show you on the general navigation is delegating authority. And so that link, again, is available for the district folks who have approval authority. So, for example, I'm logged in as a district environmental manager, and what I'm able to do is to type in the name of a person from the district who I would like to temporarily delegate my environmental manager authority, which will allow them to approve, for example, type 1 checklists. It will allow them to certify environmental document submittals, as well as sign type 2 checklists and reevaluations. So you can start typing the name of a person in the box, or you can just hit the space bar to get a pick list of those individuals from the district who you can delegate authority to. And I will choose an individual, and then I'm going to give a date range. So let's say I'm going to be out next week. I would set the from and the to date, and then I would put in a comment. And then save the delegation. And as you see, below the form, there's a list of active delegations showing who the delegation's to, the role, the start and end date. It allows you to edit those delegations in case you need to make a change either to the comments or the date range. And then as those delegations expire, there's a list of those previous delegations on this page as well.
Also, regarding delegation, Sort of an important point on delegation is that if I am the district's environmental manager and I'm planning to be out for 2 weeks, and I delegate Mike, who is also a DOT employee, because I can only assign my authority to another DOT person, and I give it to Mike for those 2 weeks that I'm expecting to be out. That doesn't mean I can't log in and still perform those actions. During that same 2 weeks, if I happen to check my email and see something that I wanted to respond to, I can still log in and I can still perform all the actions that I can because I have that authority. The difference is during that same timeline, Mike could do it on my behalf, and that's how it would show up. If Mike was to approve a type 1 for me while I'm out, it would say Mike Konikoff for Peter McGilvery on that date that he performed that action. If I did it on that same date, even though there was an active delegation, it would just say Pete McGilvery approves this type 1 on that particular date. So I just wanted folks to understand that while you're able to assign your delegation, that doesn't remove your authority. The other thing I wanted to hit on delegation is that you need to understand that this is an authority that's assigned to a specific level of leadership in the district, and it comes with that responsibility. Just remember that the folks that you're pushing that delegation down to are taking on your role and your responsibility, but ultimately it's still your accountability for things. So we just want you to be mindful. You know, an appropriate use of delegation is I'm going to be gone for a couple weeks. We want to make sure we've got folks that can do the work and everything keeps moving while I'm out. But you don't want to be signing your delegation for extended periods of time. That's really the authority that's assigned to your particular position and really should stay with your position, except for in times when it just can't. You'll be out of the office, someone's sick, someone's got a planned vacation, whatever the case may be. Was there anything else you wanted to show on this, Mike?
Just not on delegation, but for the general navigation, the last piece, which I wanted to talk about, is the project page. So I mentioned that these FM number links in the search results as well as on the landing page take you to a project page that has all the information about the project in SWEPT. It's kind of the project's homepage. And so in this example, we are seeing the project title across the top of the screen, the FM numbers below that with links to the item segment overview, as well as Project Suite Enterprise Edition pages for that particular project, so you can link to those systems. Group identifiers that are pulled out of the work program system. We receive a super file nightly from work program that has all the latest information about projects in work program. We've also received those exports for previous years, going all the way back to the beginning of the work program, because some projects we found they have a long history. The original PD&E may have been years and years ago, and those need to be pulled into SWEPT. So we do have all that information, and we also refresh it nightly. The project's managing district is listed, the county, in this case it's a district-wide project, a project description, which you'll have the opportunity to enter, the work mix, which also comes out of work program, the class of action, which you're able to define in SWEPT, ETBM numbers, if there are any associated, will be listed and linked to the latest summary report for that particular project. And then FAP numbers, again, coming from work program, if available, are shown on the project page. And then in the right-hand column, we have the district project team. These are going to be the folks within the district who have been assigned rights to modify the project file, make changes, as well as the project manager. OEM reviewers who are automatically assigned based on their jurisdiction and can be reassigned by OEM as needed. Those would include your project delivery coordinators, primary and backup, as well as the engineering lead. If there were any OGC reviewers, you're able to add those. They get automatically added on an EIS or a project that has a 4F issue. And if they are added, they're involved in the review of the environmental document. Project contact list gives detailed contact information, including mailing address for all of these individuals. And then a project map. If the project has features on the RCI, they will be mapped on the map. And then next, schedule data. This is coming from PSM. We receive a nightly export from the PSM system, and as those dates become available and are scheduled, they will appear here on the schedule data section of the project page.
Can you maybe actually go back and grab like a type 2 or something? The test project you picked was timesheets for in-house work, so it was kind of a weird project. So
yeah, like more realistic one. So I'm just going to go based on the name. I believe,
yeah,
for this EIS.
Perfect. Still no schedule data, but it's fine. At least you have a more realistic project. We can show them schedule stuff later.
Sorry about that. Yeah, and it is pretty project specific. But just on the schedule data piece, I would like to just point out that, again, we do receive it nightly. If you don't see the schedule data, you need to work with your scheduler in the district. And here we go. Here's a project that has schedule data. To get those uploaded into the PSM system, we'll receive them and process them that night, and then they'll appear in SWEP the next day. So you can see the dates are color-coded. If the actual date has occurred, an A follows the date. If the date is in the future, it'll just appear with no background. If the date has actually occurred and is on or before the projected date, then there'll be a green background. If the date has passed, but it's less than 2 weeks since it's passed, it will have a yellow background. And then you can see, for example, on this project, there's a couple dates that are more than 2 weeks behind schedule, meaning the projected date for this was right about 2 weeks ago. It doesn't mean it hasn't actually occurred. What it means is, what it may mean is that the scheduler hasn't updated the schedule in PSM with the actual date. So we highlight those so that you can quickly pick those out and work with your schedulers to update the schedule and or get the project back on track with the project manager. Okay, below that we have the project documents section. This is going to be all of your project files. And so these are organized into folders. And you can see some of the folders are, for example, PD&E provisions for work, planning, environmental review. You can expand all the folders to see what is included by clicking the Show All button. You can collapse them all, and then you can show just the ones that sections that actually have files. And then to upload files into these project documents, you use the Upload button. So for example, if I click the upload button next to environmental review process, the types of documents listed are tied to that section. And so they may include, for example, project plan consistency, documents, audit materials, so various things that relate to that particular section.
And one note on that is, as your, the way to think about SWEP is that it is literally your electronic project file. Things that you used to put into other systems or manage locally on your computer or print off and have in a filing cabinet, anything that would normally support the project file should be uploaded in SWEP. It is your electronic file for the project. If you're doing a reevaluation, you pull together the approved previous document and the supporting materials at the time that you're looking to get the reevaluation approved through the system. If you're working on a new environmental document, type 1, a type 2, an EA, an EIS, this is the filing system where you need to make sure all that supplemental information is carried into the file. This is the foundation from which, if there happens to be litigation and a request for us to develop an administrative record, this is the foundation from which that administrative record will be created. And additionally, we talked about how it's an online system and it's all database driven, and we've got performance measures and stuff. Some of the things tied to our performance measures are looking for specific documents mapped to specific categories. We do have some quick guides that are developed under HELP that give you an overview of all the categories and show you how to map everything. But this is sort of an important piece, and it shouldn't be difficult. For the most part, what you're going to see Mike demonstrate in a second is that you click on uploads, you navigate to a file, you say which one's it's associated with. Then there's a few other choices. The choices that are selected are ones that are probably accurate 90% of the time, but based on the nature of what you're uploading, you might need to choose and change some of those selections. And so there's a mechanism to do that. But for the most part, it should be very straightforward, very fast. One document can be mapped to many categories. It all depends on how you've organized your file, where the information and support documents are located, if they're located across multiple files. There can be multiple files mapped to a single document category. You also have mechanisms to update, replace existing documents should there be a desire to do that. And then ultimately, all of those documents get queued up and sent over to the EDMS when the project is approved. But you also have places where you can send a document over ahead of the approval. And the reason you would want to potentially do that is by putting it into the EDMS earlier, that makes it accessible to other applications that can read documents from the EDMS. One of the applications commonly used in the districts is that Project Suite Enterprise Edition, PSEE, and by putting the document in SWEP, sending it to EDMS, it's also making it accessible in that environment as well. Sorry, Mike, I just wanted to jump in and add some of that.
Thank you. And I'll just demonstrate some specifics on what Pete was just describing. So I'm going to just select a couple of these categories and say that this particular file is both audit materials and self-assessments. And so I will choose a file just by clicking the Choose File button, and then I'll navigate to where the file is on my computer. And what you can see is that it picks up the document description from the file name. You can change that. It also picks up the publication date from the file modified date.
And something else I want you to go ahead and demonstrate, because we're we're training the districts, and really the two categories you picked are really going to be here at central office instead of theirs. So what I want you to do for where it says choose file, I want you to clear it so they know if I inadvertently selected the wrong file, I can go choose a file again. So choose, oops, I attached the wrong one. So clear it and go grab it. But instead of audit materials and self-assessments, you say this was really the notice to proceed in the PD&E kickoff meeting announcement.
Okay, thank you. And so now going into the questions, again, they have the sensible defaults, so defaults that apply most of the time. The files are not an attorney work product. They are part of the administrative record, and they're not exempt from public record. Now, you can change those answers as appropriate. If you do say that a file is an attorney work product, the next two questions are grayed out and the answers are changed to no, it's not part of the admin record, and yes, it is exempt from public record. But for non-attorney work products, the defaults are yes and no, although you can change them. And because I selected more than one product type, it picks that up and says yes to does this file contain information that supports other topics, because I have two selections here. But what this allows me to do as well is to say that this particular file is also, for example, something in the PD&E provisions for work or some other folder that is not the environmental review process folder where I click the upload button. So this often comes up where you have a particular file, and rather than you need it to show up in more than one location in the project documents list, the thing to do is to select those on the file details editor, and that will make the same file, the same link, show up in those multiple locations rather than having a repeat or redundant file. So it's uploaded that file now. You can see it's now showing up under project schedule, under PD&E provisions for work. It's also showing up under notice to proceed and PD&E kickoff meeting announcement. And again, if I need to change where it shows up in the file, maybe it's not really the project schedule. I just uncheck that, and let's say that it's part of the ITS, for example. Now, same file has not been uploaded multiple times. It's just been associated with those particular categories. You can always change those. You don't have to upload the file multiple times. You can delete the file and start over. You can also send the file to EDMS as needed, as Pete described. They'll automatically be sent to EDMS when the environmental document is approved.
And if you've already sent the document early to EDMS, when the document is ultimately approved, it looks at all the files that should go to EDMS, and it sees whether or not, if it's already been sent, is there a newer version of it? If it's still the same version, it just skips it. It just sends the difference, what hasn't been sent yet or what has not been updated that needs to be sent. If it's already been sent once and there have been no changes to that file, it just skips past it because it's already existing in EDMS. One other thing on that particular form is that when you press delete, if you could scroll back down to where the file was loaded, if that document is mapped to multiple spots and you press delete on one of the spots, it just deletes it from that instance. It doesn't delete it on all instances.
Exactly, and it will ask you to confirm, and it says this document represents multiple products or types of files. Please choose one of the options below. So you can either remove it from that one particular category, and it will continue to be listed under the other selected categories, or you can completely delete the document. And then I wanted to show This is a real project in production that was approved recently, and you can see the EDMS document numbers listed. Those are hyperlinked to the EDMS document viewer, so you can view those documents within the EDMS system. Going back to our demonstration server, other thing I wanted to point out is that some types of documents you actually can create within SWEPT. So that would be, for example, a scope of services, a type 2 checklist, environmental document submittal, which is that routing sheet for approvals. So those have a green button. It's either going to say edit if you've previously started these documents in SWEPT, create to create a new one of these documents in SWEPT, and we'll see more demonstration of that soon. That does not prevent you from uploading a file of that type. So for example, if you're doing a reevaluation on a type 2 that was completed years ago, you can still upload a file that is the type 2 categorical exclusion determination form that was approved however long ago as one of the files to be in the project documents, but you are also able to create those checklists within SWEPT as appropriate. I believe that concludes the general navigation segment of the demo.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Mike. What we're going to do is jump back to the PowerPoint presentation. We'll go through the environmental document review process, and then we'll follow up with some additional presentations.